It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
You know, if people follow me or even you because you retweeted it on, or I'm sorry, reposted on X, if they follow us, they would have seen the video, but I need to upload the video of the cat dancing to the intro onto here so people can see that as well on here. Welcome to another episode of the Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Before we get into any football talk, please subscribe, like, hit that notification bell so you know when we're doing a new episode of one of these or any of the other great content that's being put on the channel. Leave us a comment down below. We did have some stuff actually from last episode, and we're going to answer any questions that get put in there. So leave a comment down below in this episode. So for tomorrow's episode, we can talk about whatever that comment might be. Big shout out to Pat. We will get to it at the end of the episode. We did get a vehicle to look at finally. We got one. So there it is. But Alan, what's going on?
We got the bells ringing at the St. Vincent Monastery behind me. It is a beautiful day. It was a little bit breezy. It's not too humid. It was a gorgeous day at training camp, and we got big boy football. And now I understand for the viewing audience that this podcast is largely shoulders up. But let's just say Smitty and I are of the big boy realm, okay? This is not skinny. This is not a skinny dude podcast, okay?
No. Nope,
so I'm an appreciator of big boy football, and we got a lot of that. We got fullbacks. We got extra tight ends. We got eligible linemen. We got fullbacks catching the ball. We got fullbacks throwing the ball. We had a great day, and Ryan Clark was here, and he was like this all day long. He was like, I don't know, guest defensive backs coach, I guess you want to call him, but he was on the field the entire drill. He was jacked up. I think it's been Ryan Clark's best day of his year, 2023. This probably is the highlight, I think. It was an awesome day at training camp. Super fun stuff to talk about. Psyched that we got a car to talk about. Everything is going well. How could I complain?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that RC being there and being so vocal. I mean, ESPN, his Pivot podcast, he's always talking, loves the Steelers, still loves football. Great to see him there. Big boy football. What do you think? Was it just because of there only being 2 practices this week? They really wanted to get one in that was really physical, or like why was an emphasis put on today being so physical?
Well, there is usually a day where they put in the goal line stuff. And I think that's what today was, where, they do 7 shots every day, but the 7 shots drill is just a normal personnel. Like usually you're in 3x1 or 2x2, normal sets. Today they really put in the goal line stuff where we're talking about, fullbacks and 3 tight ends and extra offensive linemen and those jumbo package, if you want to call it that. So those are the kind of things they put in. And so those are the kind of things they're going to practice. And of course they do it against each other. So it was really fun to watch. I think that stuff's great and very physical practice. I mean, there were some big hits out there today. Elandon Roberts had a big one. Mark Robinson and Jaylen Warren came together at full speed in the hole, and the ground shook. It was a very physical practice.
I feel like I'm hearing that at some point, like every practice, that with Elandon Roberts, Mark Robinson, Quan Alexander, these guys popping somebody.
Quan had a big one too. I missed. Yeah, he did too. He had a big one too.
But it sounds like, there's times where running backs are getting them back too. It's not all just the linebackers.
Oh, no. I mean, I think the running backs, if I had to say, the offense was far better than the defense today. They were successful in running the ball, but they paid for it. There's going to be some dudes in the cold tub also. That's, that it was there's wins and then there's wins. I think it was a very physical practice. I think the offense won 7 shots. 6-1. They won the goal line drill 5-2. I think a very good day for the offense, the running offense in particular. But there was some punishment laid out in exchange as well. It was very physical.
Jaylen Warren was a guy that we kind of briefly mentioned on yesterday's episode. Prior to that, we haven't talked about him really at all. You wrote a piece about him. I mean, so these last couple of days now that we're finally starting to talk about him, what has stood out about him to you? Does he even look better than he did last camp? What's going on with Jaylen Warren that's really caught your eye?
I think there's a couple things. One is explosive. I see more big runs out of him than any other running back on the roster, including Najee Harris, in terms of just like guys getting free and running down the field. He just runs with a violence that I think is rare. Talked to him. I asked him, did you get to run behind Kendrick Green yet? And he said, no, but I can't wait. And then he got to do it today and, come around his hip, and Green sealed the edge. And it was Warren against 2 DBs, and it was 1 DB down, 2 DBs down. He kept going. He's a spark plug, man. And I think, he's just a guy that he turned so many heads this time last year, and he was like this camp phenom. And I think maybe people aren't talking about him enough this year, but he's been really, really, really good. So much energy, just plays with like reckless abandon that I absolutely love. And definitely going to be an impact player for the Steelers this year. Definitely going to be a guy that they feel like they can rely on. If you think back to this time last year, we were all still like, nobody really knew what he was. Like, oh, he looks good. First week of training camp, maybe he's a thing. I don't know. Like, now they know. Like, they know coming into the year that he's going to be a part of this offense. And I think he's going to be an important part of it. He runs super hard. Najee Harris looks very, very good as well. Very physical running today. Ran over Alex Highsmith in a big collision at one point. Now, Highsmith brought him down eventually. I mean, maybe a 4-yard gain, but it was good. And it was and then the other thing that I thought, about Jaylen Warren, though, to me is just he really specifically seems to he picks on the biggest bully, and he's 5'8", like 215. Like, he's not a big dude, but Elandon Roberts and backs on backers, yeah, I got him. Straight in the hole with Mark Robinson, fine, no problem. That's fun to watch. And Mike Tomlin said, that's how he's got to play. He's a little dude. He's got to play like that for his whole career. He's just got to play like his hair's on fire. And so that makes for entertaining practice, and it makes for good football usually.
Yeah. I want to switch back to kind of the physicality practice. You mentioned the multiple tight ends. That was something I had asked you about, I think, going back to an episode last week, because we talked about if they're going to be in 12 personnel or whatever it might be, having multiple tight ends on the field, you're sacrificing probably having Elandon Robinson on the field. How did they look today when they had multiple tight ends on the field? I mean, you said it was a good day for the offense, so that leads me to believe, they kind of had their way out there when going to these multiple tight end fronts.
Yep. Very fun. So in 7 shots, we saw Pat Freiermuth score. And then we saw Darnell Washington score in completely different ways. They put Washington flexed all the way out the edge of the formation, got him one-on-one against James Pierre, and then threw a jump ball in the back of the end zone. Freiermuth is moving in between zones, beats Minkah Fitzpatrick, before he can get carried into the next zone, Pickett threw a really tight window throw in there right at him. Nice catch. And so Zach Gentry in that goal line drill was a play action. He just kind of sneaks up off that block, and then you go up and get it. I just think they have so many different weapons. Connor Hayward did everything you can do as a football player today. I think he had some big blocks. He ran with the ball. He caught the ball. He threw a touchdown pass. He was all over the place. So let me just run down, we can talk about this, but it was Matt Canada's bag of tricks on full display in these goal line. So this goal line, we had the first snap, an inside handoff to Connor Hayward lined up as a fullback. Then we had play action off that same motion, and Jaylen Warren out in the flat. Pickett dumped it off to him for an easy score, nobody around him. Then we had a Pat Freiermuth jet sweep. Pat said he was in. The coach on the far sideline marked him short. That is the defensive sideline, I will point out. So may have been some bias there, but Najee ran one in easily. I think I said it again before when we did the first kind of team run day, but the fact that 2 yards for Najee Harris has been routine is just it's gone are the days of hitting the backfield on every rep. It has not happened at all. It has been completely different, where he's getting to the line of scrimmage very consistently, and then beyond there. And then we saw Hayward again running with the ball. Joey Porter Jr. came up and made a really nice tackle on him. Then we did the play action to Gentry, and then went back to Hayward running. Defense stretches it out, and he just kind of floats a little lob to Pat Freiermuth in the back of the end zone to seal the win for the offense and that drill. Really fun day for the big guys, man. Really fun day, and a ton of just he didn't get the ball as much as he has, but a ton of Kendrick Green in there at fullback and H-back, some extra lineman stuff. It was just that was the very clear focus of the day. And I think the offense looks good when they do that kind of thing. I think it is something that if you really want to say, like, okay, yeah, the Steelers offense was not great last year, but short yardage was the one area where they were significantly improved from 2020 to 2021. You remember how much of a struggle short yardage was for them in 2021. I'm sorry, 2021 to 2022. In 2021, short yardage was such a struggle. And last year, remember Derek Watt picked up all those first downs, and Kenny Pickett was running forward, and I think they look even better than they did last year in terms of their short yardage, goal line jumbo package, whatever you want to call it. Looks like it looks like it could be a real big weapon for this team.
Something crossed my mind here, and I want to get your take on this. And it's not necessarily about like today's practice specifically. It's just like a trend. Jet sweep seems to be just like such a controversial thing for whatever reason with Matt Canada. Like, for all the flaws that he has as an offensive coordinator, I don't know why people get so hung up on the jet sweep thing. Now, whether or not Pat Freiermuth should be the one getting those jet sweeps could be a different conversation. But do you have any, like, what's your opinion on the idea of the jet sweeps within Matt Canada's offense, and why are fans like so against, like, would they average like 6 some yards per carry on them last year or something like that? Like, yeah, I don't get it.
Well, here's what I think. I think a lot of Steelers fans are not necessarily big, like, general NFL / college football fans. I think there's a lot of places where maybe like the fan base isn't so dominant. Like, if you like, okay, my wife's from like central New Jersey, right? If you go to the bar, like on a Sunday, like the Eagles are on and the Giants are on, but the Cowboys are on and somebody else might be on. And there's like 8 different people rooting for 8 different teams. And I think maybe people get exposed to different stuff. Okay. Whereas like in Pittsburgh, like, how far do you have to leave Pittsburgh before you find another game on TV? Like Youngstown, I don't know, very far away, right? Like, it is a monoculture here, right? And so I think sometimes people see something introduced to the Steelers as like different when like really everybody else does it. Like, every team in the league runs jet sweeps. The Steelers are not unusual or even one of the teams that runs it the most. And I think people see it as this like gimmick play or like a trick play, like they would consider like a double reverse or something like that. And it's not. It's just a normal running play that every offense in every level of professional and college football has in their arsenal. And it has a very specific job to keep the defense honest about flowing to the football and defending the width of the field. And, it can make a big difference. If you make those inside linebackers move with that jet because they are convinced that that's where the ball is going, it only takes, when you're talking about NFL players, like, now I'm in position, now I'm totally out of position. Like, that's all it takes, right? It's like a guy to be that far away, take one false step, and an offense can take advantage. And that's all it's trying to do. It's not anything groundbreaking or I don't think he deserves some kind of like credit for it. He is one of the guys that innovated it. Like, if you go back to when he was at North Carolina State and at Pitt, and he was one of the first guys to really make it a thing. And so I think that's why he's really associated with it, but it is just everywhere now to the point that everybody does it. I honestly think the Steelers should have done it more last year. I felt like it was one of the more successful plays they had in their arsenal, and they didn't do it nearly enough. And if you want to levy, I think, a coaching criticism, I don't think they did enough to build off the success they had on that play. I don't think we saw, where's the jet? Okay, then run it again until they stop it, then run a fake, and then do something. I didn't think we saw like the building up of an offense in a concise way that maybe I have seen Canada do in the past, back when he was in college. And so I think people way overreact to the jet sweep. I think it's a good play for the Steelers. They have some guys that are really good at running it. Gunnar Olszewski's really good at running it. Connor Hayward, for a tight end, really good at running it and won that game. You sealed the game against the Raiders with it last year. I mean,
with having Calvin Austin in the fold now too, I'm curious to see if that's something that they
ought to be really good at it. I haven't seen him do as much of it this year, but man, they have guys that can do it and be good at it. So why not? I think it's it's gonna. I'm not sure it's gonna be as big of a part of their offense as it has been, just because I haven't seen it a lot, or maybe as much this training camp. But it certainly is a part of this offense and every offense, and I think they're pretty good at it. So I'm not sure where the consternation comes from. Like I said, I think people just think it's like some kind of trick play or something. I don't know. I don't get it, but it's good and it's going to stay. So,
yeah. Right before we started, you mentioned a couple names that stood out individually. One I wanted to ask you about because saw even a clip of this player missing a tackle on Gunnar Olszewski, but you said you liked the way that he was coming up against the run. Joey Porter Jr., we've talked about him a lot, but what did you see from him today that made you, say his name right away to me in terms of players that stood out?
Yeah, I think in terms of cornerback play, like one-on-one tackling as a cornerback is extremely difficult. I don't have like a ton of expectations other than get the guy down. But one of the things I think is very important is, when you're an outside cornerback, you have to be able to recognize that it's a run play, react, and get yourself into a run defending position quickly. Like, you can't let that receiver take you down the field. And I thought he did a really good job in those run periods of reacting and then getting good leverage, getting inside those corners and not letting himself get blocked. Now, he's a big, strong dude, so like I expect him to be good at that. But to me, it was about the recognition, the reaction, and then he made a really nice tackle on Connor Hayward, like I said, in that last team period. But I think that's an area where, compared to the typical rookie cornerback, he should be fairly advanced. I think he's had a very good training camp. But I think, there are going to be struggles for rookie corners. Like, he's going to get beat. Everybody does. But I think, like, in general, that should be a strength for him, where he should be able to be a guy, like, I hate to make this comparison because it's kind of obvious, but like, think about like young Ike Taylor. Like, he'd come up and hit you. Like, he might have got touched a couple times, but like, he'd come up and hit you. And I think like that is certainly now I think maybe Joey can be better and certainly more aware in coverage right away, but like, he needs that to be part of what he brings to the table, I think, on a day-to-day basis, especially if you're talking about him in comparison to the other corners they have. Like Patrick Peterson, skinny dude, older, like not super physical. Levi Wallace, I think, a little bit thicker, but still not a guy that is just going to come up and pop people, right? Like, if someone from that position is going to come up and stick people in the running game, it's got to be Joey, and I think he's shown an aptitude for it so far.
And the other one, and you actually talked about the same thing. Now, we kind of touched on this player a little bit. You talked about him with Chris Carter on the Locked On Steelers podcast. You can check that out in addition to, not instead of, Steelers Afternoon Drive. Isaiahh Loudermilk in just that battle.
Afternoon in the afternoon. That's how it works.
Yeah, there you go. There's room for all of us here. Isaiahh Loudermilk, though, I want to talk about him. You mentioned him specifically, and there's quite a battle with those guys that are going to make the defensive line room. There's so many names. How many are they going to carry? But Isaiahh Loudermilk really standing out. Man,
he looked good today. Playing both defensive line and linebacker, standing up a little bit. He looks really good. He's strong at the point of attack. He does not lose one-on-one blocks. And he's showing, I think, more athleticism than I remember from him. Like, he's getting upfield, being disruptive. He was a guy that I thought before would just kind of, if he made a play, it was because the play came to him. He's going out and finding them some. Watched a whole period of the defensive line and the offensive line doing double team blocks where it was like 2-on-2. It was either 4-on-2 or 3-on-2. And, defense is a pretty big disadvantage. And I think he was one of the best players in that drill. Some other guys stood out, like Braden Fehoko, I thought was very good. He's obviously big and strong and hard to move. Isaiahh Loudermilk's a smaller guy. Like, that's a drill that is not designed to be his specialty. And I thought he still was one of the most impressive performers. So I think, I don't know, like, we got a ways to go. We still got all 3 preseason games. But for me, I cannot leave him off the 53 right now. He's been that good.
Okay. Well, is there somebody then along that defensive line that you would have expected more from that you haven't seen that he's taken the spot of?
I mean, DeMarvin Leal's been hurt, and so like that's where he's gotten the opportunities. I would say if somebody's underimpressed on that line, it's probably been like Armon Watts a little bit. Like, he hasn't shown me a ton. Again, like, a veteran guy, doesn't get that many reps, doesn't need that many reps. I don't know what, like, that's one of those things where, like, I can only see what I see, but sometimes there's a reason that you're seeing what you're seeing. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't seen much from Cam Hayward either. That's because he doesn't even need to be here. Like, but I know Cam Hayward. I don't know Armon Watts in the same way. And so sometimes you kind of got to make some projections there. I was a little bit surprised to see Mont Adams as the first string nose tackle. He was today, in addition to on the depth chart, but was today also the first team. Because I think Fehoko has been better. And I think Keanu Benton has not been as consistent, but has flashed positively in a big way at that position. That's probably a spot where, like, if you got to cut somebody, like maybe it's one of those two older guys. I don't know. It's a very difficult decision at that position. Like I said, we do have a long way to go. Chances are there's going to be an injury, something, and the whole conversation takes care of itself. But just really impressed with Loudermilk so far and what he's been able to bring to the table.
Actually, that's a good. I didn't have that on here, but that first official depth chart, which doesn't really mean much of anything at this point. Like you said, we haven't even gotten to a preseason game to this point. But was there any? You mentioned you were kind of surprised to see Adams ahead of Fehoko. Was there anything else that maybe stood out a little bit, if anything? I know, like Calvin Austin as the number one returner. Was that a surprise at all? No. Okay.
No. I don't know who else would be. I mean, Gunner, I guess. It's
yeah.
Calvin Austin.
Gunner was the two. Yeah.
Was he the number one kick returner too?
Austin was, both.
Okay.
Number one punt.
And then maybe
returner.
McFarland was the other kick returner. Was that the other guy?
Ooh, yeah, probably. I just noticed 1 and 2, but I would assume that he was 3.
It would not surprise me if Austin does not return kickoffs, just because like they never return them anyway, and I think they might prefer a bigger, little sturdier dude there in terms of like 35-mile-an-hour collisions. I just don't think they want to get him broken. You know, a guy like Anthony McFarland is very fast and can catch the ball and also can like absorb the punishment of that job a little bit easier than Calvin Austin could, I think. So that wouldn't surprise me if we don't see him there. And with the new rules, there's going to be so few kick returns that it almost doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, true. Absolutely.
But there was nothing else that I really saw that stood out to me, nor was I expecting there too. You know, I don't put nearly any stock in that. I put a lot more stock on what I see on the field, and it did mostly line up with the way they've been playing, and so it wasn't a lot of surprises.
Okay. I want to get to a question that we got on yesterday's YouTube video to answer today's from my guy Thomas. To this point in camp, what would you say is the weakest position group? Where can the Steelers still improve, and do you think they'll go looking somewhere else for that help?
I think the weakest position group has been probably slot corner. Like Shannon Sullivan's been okay. He's been beaten a lot. Elijah Riley, again, like some good and some not so good. There has not been a consistent performer at that spot, I will say. And we have not seen it. Like I thought maybe we would see a lot of Patrick Peterson in the slot. Now, of course, training camp, we're not going to see a lot of Patrick Peterson, period. But we have not seen a lot of Patrick Peterson in the slot. Some, but not a lot. And so maybe that's the plan eventually, and they just haven't gotten there yet. But I think that's probably the spot that maybe has been the least consistent. With the big asterisk of they've been playing the whole time without their top 3 safeties. So, like, I don't even expect them to look good. And honestly, I think Trey Norwood and Kenny Robinson have looked better than I thought they would, given how many reps they've been playing. So, yeah, I think slot corner is probably the one spot where I think they could be better. It would not surprise me if they went and got a corner. You know, they added a body, but they didn't really make a move to really replace a player of the talent level of Corey Trice after his injury. And it would really surprise me if they did that with an outside corner. You know, I think it would be much more likely that if they were going to say, okay, well, we lost a guy who was like a 7th-round pick and it's like probably going to make this team. Like if we go find somebody that fits that mold, I think a slot corner would be much more likely than another boundary guy. And so that's probably the one spot where I think they can make an upgrade. There are some places where like the position group overall is okay, but maybe there's like a depth spot that could be had. Ant Mac has been really locking down that running back 3 job. Like that was one where coming into camp, I thought maybe they could, but man, he's been so good. I just can't see it there. You know, the bottom of the wide receiver group has been very competitive. Tackle, I think beyond the first 3 guys, I don't think they have another tackle they're keeping. And usually you want 4 tackle capable guys. And so how that looks, I don't know, because they've got too many guards, and we've talked about that. And seems like they're going to keep Kendrick Green because they wouldn't be wasting all this time on him playing fullback if they weren't. So I don't know where you get the roster spot for a tackle at this point, but I do think they're sort of dangerously thin in terms of tackle depth. Again, I think the first 3 guys have played very well, so I don't think I would consider the position group a negative at this point, but the 4th guy could definitely be upgraded on.
Do you think it's plausible? Actually, I saw that he went down with a little bit of an injury today. Possible to deal from the interior depth for a tackle, like say they move Kevin Dotson out, and whether it's like a 1-for-1 swap or like then using that pick in a separate deal to acquire a tackle. But could you see them dealing from that internal depth?
I think they should have been trying to trade Kevin Dotson. Maybe they have been, and I don't know. But it just seems to make too much sense. He did get hurt today, right shoulder injury. Didn't see him come back. I saw him put his pads back on, but I didn't actually see him take another rep. And Mike Tomlin didn't address it, so I'm not 100% sure whether he did come back or not, but definitely was injured and had it all wrapped up around his shoulder. It didn't seem like it was major, but we'll see going forward what that means. But yeah, I mean, I think they should move him. I do think, like a player, they worked out a player yesterday on their off day. Kipper was his name. He had been with the Ravens, a rookie from Oregon State. But the thing that stood out to me was he was guard and tackle. He had played both. And, if you're thinking about, like, if they could get rid of Dotson and make a trade, like someone like that, I think would be pretty attractive to them, where they could kind of split the difference between those 2 positions.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, you saying slot corner there, though, doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I feel like coming into camp, it was kind of that. And inside linebacker, even though, Holcomb, good player, Elandon Roberts, good player for what he offers, but just completely turning over the room. I think there were a lot of questions. Then you had Quan Alexander, and that conversation probably puts slot corner at the top of that list. So, I'm not surprised that would be the group that's really standing out the least.
Yeah, I'm not really either. Like I said, the one thing I think we didn't know is how much we were going to see Patrick Peterson there. If it was like a lot of Patrick Peterson as the slot corner, then I think maybe you could say, well, it doesn't really matter if the rest of those guys are that good or not, because that's who's going to play there. We have not seen that to this point, and so I think that definitely makes it the position where I think they're the weakest. All
right, and unless you got anything else from practice.
No, this is what we've been waiting for. We need to go there now. Okay. We've made the people wait 27 minutes. That's long enough. Let's go there now. We need it.
All right. So my guy, Patrick, finally coming through for us. And I should preface, this is not his Hummer. This is one that he did a couple of oil changes for.
Yours, but we're going to look beggars and choosers at this point.
Yeah. So backstory here. This thing is called the Big Cat Pat's Steelers Hummer. That's the name for this thing. The owner is an old school Irish guy from the north side. He has had it as long as Pat can remember. Believe he still does. Used to drive it around at parades and things like that. So this was a hot commodity in town to see this thing. So, Alan, without further ado.
Oh, we gotta leave it up. No, wait.
There it is. It's behind us. Is there a way for me to
just leave it up? Just hide us for a second.
Okay.
Good. What are your thoughts?
That's everything you want to see right there. That's exactly what we were looking for. We just need more of those at that point. I want to see. So I tweeted a reference picture. And that's actually how we got this in reply. I would like to see a van for sure. I want to see some type of van that is all decked out Steelers wise, whether that is like a minivan even, but like one of those old
van,
school vans.
RV, ambulance, hearse.
Yeah. And a Jeep was not one of the reference pictures that I had, but that would be awesome as well.
That could be good too. I will say, I think we need to rate these. So just off the cuff, I'm going to say, I'm going to give this 4 out of 6 Lombardi trophies right here. I think that's
what we're doing.
That's the scale. That's the scale.
All right.
I think this is a 4 out of 6. I think it's not ridiculous. Like, you could turn this back into a stock vehicle relatively quickly, and that's okay. I'm not belittling that, but there's a level of dedication when you start ruining your vehicle to make it Steelers that I think we need to appreciate. And but this is very good. I got to say, I was on the way in here today, and I was following a minivan with Connecticut plates, and they had a big Steelers cling across and 2 big logos all across the back window, and I was like, they're teasing me. I'm here. I'm right. I'm seeing it, and I'm not getting it sent to me. So I'm very happy. If we didn't get one today, I was going to be very frustrated. I was going to start to get upset.
Yeah.
And now I'm happy.
No, that's why
I'm happy that we saw Northside Irish and his Hummer 4 out of 6 Lombardi trophies. I think is a solid score there.
I feel like that is a good number because you're not setting it so high where it's like we're gonna get these other crazy ones in, and it's like, okay, if I gave that first one a 4, where do I have to go with this one? So to not piggyback off of you, I'm gonna do a 3.5.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if we can cut a Lombardi trophy in half. Can we do that?
But
is that
3
legal?
Seems too low. I mean,
3 seems too low. I agree. I'll accept it. 3.5. 3.5 it is.
Okay.
It's 3 Lombardis.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's 3 Lombardis and an AFC championship. All right.
There we go. There we go. But yeah, I feel like if I went, higher, I'm setting the bar way too high. So and we're gonna get our things.
That's good. I want more though. Like, we'll do one of these every day. I'm totally okay with that. Totally okay with that. By the way, also, like, Northside Irish, like that Hummer in the St. Patty's Day parade. Yes, like that. Like, yes, absolutely. Like, would do a shot of Jameson with that guy. Like, that's where I'm at right now.
Big Cat Pat.
Big Cat Pat. Big Cat Pat. You want to come on the podcast? Send us a DM. We're in. We'll get you.
There we go. There we go. I think that's it. Unless you got anything else, that's a great way to wrap up the show. So yeah,
could not think of a better way.
Your vehicles are what we want to be wrapping up the show each episode.
And questions, and Alan, keep the comments coming, and we appreciate the love, especially on the YouTube channel at PGH Steelers Now. Like and subscribe. You can find my stuff on Twitter at @Saunders_PGH and at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter, and SteelersNow.com is where all my stuff and Nick Farabaugh's stuff and this podcast live on the internet. And Spotify, Megaphone, Odyssey, all the things, Apple, Google, places where you find podcasts.
Yep, and it's all set up in one place, right in the link tree, which you can find. I am Zachary Smith, PGH. We'll be back for another episode tomorrow. Last practice before I walk through on Thursday, and then preseason football will be here before we know it on Friday. So
yeah, so tomorrow. I think we'll probably have like maybe Nick do Thursday, and then if all goes well, Friday will be from Raymond James Stadium.
Boom.
Before
what a background that would be.
Before the Steelers Buccaneers. So that should be good.
There we go. So you don't want to miss it. And how you can do that, hit that notification bell right below. You'll know when we post a new video. Leave us a like, subscribe, obviously. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening somewhere else, and keep those comments coming in so we can read the questions on here. Other than that, for Alan Saunders, I am Zachary Smith. Thanks for hopping in for another Steelers afternoon drive, and we will see you guys tomorrow.